No. Okay, now calling case of the estate of Samuel Farnsworth versus the city of Philadelphia. And I have appearances from the plaintiff case.
Absolutely, Your Honor. Good afternoon. My name is Aashka Gupta, and I'm here with my co-counsel, Mr. Narsapur.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon to you both.
Together, we represent the plaintiff in this matter. That's the family of Sam Farnsworth.
All right, defense.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Fadil Adeite, last name spelled Adeite, and I'm joined here with my co-counsel, Ms. Annika.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon to both of you as well.
Together, we represent the defendant in today's case, the city of Philadelphia.
Okay. Thank you both. Are there any pretrial agreements that need to be read off the record before we proceed?
Yes, Your Honor, concerning two pieces of evidence that opposing counsel and I have decided to create. That's Exhibit 1 and Exhibit 35.
Okay. Is that your understanding of that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing further.
Anything from the defense?
Just one thing to note for the court, Your Honor. There's one more pre-admitted exhibit, that's Exhibit 3, autopsy report. During my opening statement, I'm going to be publishing a copy of that autopsy to the members of the jury.
Okay. Have you met and conferred with opposing counsel about that?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're okay with that?
Yeah, Your Honor, if it's pre-admitted, we're okay with them using it.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Nope, Your Honor, ready to proceed.
Okay, great. We'll proceed to opening statements. Ms. Gupta.
Yes, Your Honor. Merci. Your Honor. Opposing counsel. Members of the jury. You might remember the 2018 NFCs right here in Philly. Because you know the Eagles, their star quarterback, well, he hits 3 touchdowns. And they win that game 38-7. And in 2018 again, they're at the Super Bowl. And this time the quarterback, he does it himself. He pulls off a really special. He guides the ball all the way to victory. 2022. That's the World League. The Phillies play. I mean, they make it off a wild card spot. They go all the way to Worlds. Each of these is an iconic moment in Philadelphia sports history. And folks, in each of these moments, Philadelphia fans flock to the streets. Today, the evidence will show this city knew what its fans did when they celebrated. They climbed poles. But you're going to understand the city had a simple solution to this problem of pole climbing. Well, they just put some grease on the poles, made them harder to climb. And then you'll learn that the city didn't like the PR they got from that solution. So in 2025, they stopped. 2025. February 9th, 2025. On February 9th, a man named Lanny Davidson and his friend Sam Farnsworth, they're celebrating again, and this time the Eagles have won the 2025 Super Bowl. So they're out on the streets, and Lanny Davidson, he sees a pole. So he goes up to it, tests the pole, no grease. So he climbs. When he's at the top of that pole, he slips. And he falls on his friend, Sam Farnsworth. Killing him. You'll learn the city had a way to prevent that death. You'll learn the city had a solution, and they chose not to take it. Because of that choice, a 24-year-old man was left dead on the sidewalk. And folks, that's the reason we're suing the city for negligence. We raise the burden that comes with that decision. We'll show you today that it's more likely than not the city of Philadelphia will they fail to exercise reasonable care. And that failure was a substantial factor in Mr. Farnsworth's death. The way we're going to show you that is by asking you to pay attention to the solutions the city knew they had. The fact that they didn't take those solutions and that Mr. Farnsworth's death occurred as a result of that choice. So let's start with the first idea that the city had a solution. Because folks, you're going to hear from the director of public safety for the entire city of Philadelphia. And he'll be forced to admit on that stand that, look, even though grease seems like a simple solution, it worked. That it greatly reduced the risk of climbing the pole. And that when they used grease, there were 0 deaths caused. But you're going to understand, see, they took that solution away. They stopped using that solution. Because Lady Davidson, climbed that pole, testified, there was no grease on it on February 9th. It was replaced by a fence that Lady Davidson steps over and then climbs. But it's not just that. You're going to understand why that decision to leave the poles ungreased caused Mr. Farnsworth's death. Today, you'll be provided with a report written by an expert in public safety, and folks, that person will use a word to describe the actions of this city. We expect the word the expert will use is negligent. We expect that report will say that had the poles been greased that day, Sam Farnsworth would be alive. You'll understand that's what this case boils down to. The city had a solution and they chose not to take it. So at the end of today's trial, we'll present you with a choice of your own. And we'll ask you to take it. And find the city. Nah. Thank you for your time.
All right, Mr. Adeite.
May it please the court. Counsel, members of the jury. Lanny Davidson did something unpredictable. That made Sam Farnsworth's death unpreventable. Sam Farnsworth died when he was 23. When he was 23, his skull crashed against a metal frame and he bled to death. Sam Farnsworth didn't die because he tripped. He didn't die because he hit some pothole. No, he died because of the actions of one person and one person alone. Lanny Davidson. See, members of the jury, the plaintiff just missed something big when they told you what happened to Sam Farnsworth. You see, the whistle blows on Super Bowl Sunday. Sam and Lanny rush into the Lanny Davidson climbs on top of a light pole. And then he makes the most dangerous, the most unpredictable decision when he's up there. He tells Sam Farnsworth to stay right underneath, spot him, catch him if he falls. As soon as he does that, he puts Sam Farnsworth in a deadly position and makes his death unpreventable. Even though that's the case, the family of Sam Farnsworth, they still brought this claim of negligence against the city of Philadelphia. The judge will instruct you that that means that they have some things to prove today. They have to prove it's more likely than not that the city's negligence is what caused Sam Farnsworth's death. They're not going to be able to meet that burden today. But as the defense, even though we didn't have to, we brought a claim of our own. This is a comparative negligence. So what negligence today, we have to prove to you. It's more likely than not that the actions of Lanny Davis, that's what killed Sam Farnsworth. We're gonna do that today, members of the jury, by showing you 3 simple facts. The city was careful. Lanny Davidson did something unpredictable. And that made Sam Farnsworth's death unpreventable. So let's start with that first fact. The city was careful. Today, the director of public safety for the city of Philadelphia is going to take the stand. He'll tell you every single thing he did to keep people safe on Super Bowl Sunday. You see, opposing counsel wants to talk about solutions. But today, you're going to hear that there was more than one solution to the problem of people getting hurt. You'll learn that parts of the city were barricaded. People were sent home early. They took signs and forced people to leave the light poles alone. They tried to keep the city safe. But that'll lead us to that second fact. That Lanny Davidson did something just unpredictable. Because members of the jury, as soon as I take my seat, Lanny Davidson is going to come right to this witness. And he is going to be forced to admit that he made the decision that killed Sam Farnsworth. He'll be forced to admit that he was doing something he knew was crazy. He knew he shouldn't have been doing, but while he was up there, he invited Sam Farnsworth in and told him, stand directly underneath. That'll lead us to that third fact. And that's that made Sam Farnsworth's death unpreventable. See, today you're going to get to look at an autopsy report. This details exactly what happened when Sam Farnsworth died. And you'll learn that how he died is that he was inside the fence. He was inside the fence, and when someone on top of him fell, his head crushed it. I want you to hold on to this manuscript and read this when you get a chance. Because at the end of today's trial, it will be the only decision, the last decision that was made, the decision that caused Sam Farnsworth's death. That was Lanny Davidson. At that time, I'll speak to you again. We'll go through all the evidence and it'll be clear. The city of Philadelphia is not like. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Gupta, would the plaintiff on the case?
We would, Your Honor. He called Lanny Davidson to the stand.
Davidson, you are sworn.
Thank you.
May I proceed?
Men.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Sure. Hi. My name is Lanny Davidson.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Davidson?
Right now, I'm a 2-year-old at UCLA Law. Eventually, I'm hoping to be a public defender, but I assume that's my day, so see how it works out.
How did you get involved in this case?
Sam Farnsworth was my best friend. And I'm the one who fell on him.
Would you recognize a picture of Sam if it were shown to you, sir?
Yeah, of course.
Can you turn to exhibit 1 in your binder?
Sure.
It's been pre-admitted, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I think I'm there.
What do you see?
This is Sam.
How'd you meet Sam?
Me and Sam didn't go to the same college, although we met in college. See, the two of us, we both did the debate team at our schools, and we would often see each other at the debate events. Turns out he was from Philadelphia, I'm from Philly, so we bonded over that. And every time we were home, we'd hang out, the two of us.
You said you'd hang out when you were home. Well, sir, were you two in Philadelphia on February 9th, 2025?
Yeah.
Go through what happened that day. Tell us what happened at the beginning. What did you and Sam do in Philly?
We were in Philly together, not just to come home and visit our families, but Well, the Super Bowl was happening the weekend, and the Eagles were playing, so we thought we'd come home and go to the bar and watch the game together.
Is that what you ended up doing? Did you go to a bar and watch the game?
Yeah, we did.
Who won?
The Eagles won.
What did you do after finding out that the Eagles won the Super Bowl in Philly?
Well, pretty much as soon as the game finished, everybody spilled outside into the streets and started partying like crazy. I mean, it was total chaos.
Well, I want to understand, Mr. Davidson, what sports culture was like in Philadelphia. Did you ever attend any other celebrations besides the one for the Super Bowl in the city?
Sure, I was here in 2022 when the Phillies went to the World Series. I was here for the 2023 Super Bowl qualifier, the NFC. I've been here plenty of times during the celebrations.
Were you ever on the streets for those celebrations?
Yes, I was.
Did you see how the fans were acting when they were on the street celebrating?
One of a kind city, you know.
Well, what would they do?
The Philadelphia fans are rowdy. You know, I've seen cars get flipped over. I've seen fires get lit, windows smashed, all kinds of things. Yeah, it was pretty wild.
What are climbing poles? Did you ever see any fans climb poles when they were celebrating a game?
Yeah, I mean, when I was there, that was happening all the time. I've seen tons of people climb up the street lamps and the street signs on the side of the road.
Sir, would you recognize a picture of some fans climbing up some poles in Philadelphia for show you?
Yeah, I think so.
Can you flip to exhibit 27 in your binder?
Sure. 6, 27.
What do you see there?
Right, this is exactly what I was talking about. This is a picture of somebody climbing a street sign.
What, is it a fair and accurate picture of somebody climbing a street sign, sir?
Yes, this looks like what I saw.
We offer exhibit 27, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Okay.
Exhibit 27 is admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, I want to talk about whether or not the city knew that they had a problem of people climbing the street signs. Now, you mentioned that you were there on the streets for the Super Bowl. Sir, do you remember what you did that day on the streets?
Yeah, I mean, the crowd pretty much swept us away. I mean, we were being funneled down the streets. And then eventually we ran into this like lamp post, and that's where we stopped.
Your Honor, is it right if Mr. Davidson comes into the well and kind of shows the jury what he did when he saw that lamppost?
Sure thing.
And Mr. Northwestern, can I borrow your chair for a second, sir? You can use mine, that's okay. All right, Mr. Davidson, we have
Your Honor, before they start, can I move so I can get a better view of that?
Of course you can.
This is what we have to use with, so we're gonna pretend this is a poll. I'm somebody in the crowd. You just got here. The Eagles have won the Super Bowl. Tell me what you do.
Right, okay, so the Eagles win the Super Bowl and we're all swept away, we leave the bar, we walk, and then if this is a bowl, me and Sam, we stop right in front of
Oh, why just stop it?
it. Well, there was a fence in front of it. And see, I was thinking about climbing the pole, but, you know, I noticed the fence and I would have had to go over it first.
Did you go over the fence?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a couple of feet tall, so I stepped right over it. Well, then I was at the pole itself.
Was it easy to go over the fence?
Yeah, it was totally easy.
Okay, I'll join you. So we're right next to the pole. We just jumped over the fence. What'd you do next?
Well, the first thing that I did was I kind of ran my fingers on the pole to check if it had any grease on it. And it really didn't.
Was there grease on any part of the pole at all?
Not that I could see, no.
Okay, so after you find out this pole is ungreased, what do?
Well, then I start to climb the pole, like a lot of the other people who were there in the crowd.
What happens when you climb the pole? Did you get to the top?
Yeah, so I mean, I started climbing the pole and I'm inching my way up there. And then, you know, when I got to the top, it was crazy. Like down in the crowd, it was so loud and you know, the air was thick. And when I got up there, it was all silent and the air was cold and I could see everybody's heads down below me.
What happens next?
Well, Sam is right here, I guess. And I'm kind of shouting down to him and teasing him. I'm saying, it's you, you're next. He gets like shaking his head. And then I kind of start to slip.
What happened when you started to slip? Can you just go back for us?
Yeah, so I started to lose my footing as I was yelling down to him. And then I totally lost my entire balance and I fell straight down. And at first I didn't realize that I had landed on him. Like I'd heard a crunch. Thought it was me, and then I saw the blood and I noticed it was him below me.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. You can retake your seat now. Mr. Davidson, you mentioned that Sam was right below you. Sir, did you ever directly tell Sam, stand directly underneath me?
No, I didn't say that.
Was Sam inside the fence with you?
Yeah,
Is that how he died?
right. When I fell like directly on him. I mean, he was right below me.
Thank you for your time. We have nothing further. And may we publish these into the jury, exhibit 27?
You may. Mr. Davis, cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Mr. Davis. Let's start off by talking about why you're here today. Because the truth is, sir, you were originally a defendant in this lawsuit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When Sam died, his family sued me first, and then we settled.
Sam's family, they wanted to sue you for the death of their son.
Yes, they did sue me.
But when they dropped that, they said something to you, right?
What?
Well, sir, one of the things Sam Farnsworth's family said to you was, we think it was an accident. And besides, you're just a law student.
Objection, Your Honor, to an improper testimony under Rule 408. Might I be heard? Your Honor, this is evidence of a prior deal that was made between Mr. Davidson and the Farnsworth family. Under Rule 408, evidence of such compromises or negotiations, well, that can't be offered under 408A to prove the validity of a claim, like the defense rather is doing in this case.
May I respond? I'm using this for a 408B purpose. It lists the exceptions. I'm using it to go towards the witness's credibility and bias. I'm talking about their prior involvement in this case and how credible their testimony is now, since they used to be getting sued for the same.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, sir, what the Farnsworth family said was that we think it was just an accident and besides, you're just a law student. You don't have any money.
Yeah, they're really dumb.
So after they told you you didn't have any money, they gave you 2 conditions to drop that suit.
The condition is.
Sir, one of the conditions was that you had to pay them $1. You remember that, right?
Right, I have that much money. I did pay $1.
Another one of the conditions was that you had to testify on behalf of them in court.
Right, yeah, I would have done that anyways, but they asked if I'd be here.
So you're saying you would have done it anyway, but one of the conditions of the settlement was that you would testify in court.
Yes, you're exactly right.
So you took $1 out of your bank and you paid them, right?
Yeah, I hit him with a little Venmo transfer.
Now here you are in court.
You're right.
So now that we know why you're here, let's talk more about your claim.
Okay.
Because, sir, you believe that if there was grease on the light pole on February 9th, you wouldn't have climbed it.
Right, well, the grease is really slippery on the pole, so I don't think I would be able to. I don't really think I could try.
So you're saying if there was grease on that light pole, you wouldn't even try to climb it.
I don't think so, no.
You're saying that preventative measure would have stopped
It is slippery.
Let's talk about some others. Because, sir, as soon as you walked outside after the whistle blew, that was after a long day of drinking alcohol.
Yes, it was game day.
You had drank several beers that day.
Right.
You see the light pole, you set your targets on it, don't you?
I walked over, sure, set my targets.
When you walk over to that light pole, Sam Farnsworth is back there telling you, no, don't do this.
Right, no, he told me that I shouldn't go bluff. He kept telling me again and again not to.
After he tells you don't do this, you do it anyway, right?
Right.
So then you got up to that light pole, you see a fence in front of you, right?
Yeah.
So you certainly know what a fence is, right?
Yes, I know the fences.
You know that fences are made to keep people out.
Sure, they can be.
And like you showed on direct examination, even though you saw a fence right in front of you at that light pole, what you did was step over.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was on the pole. At the time, I didn't think it was such a big deal.
So I'm not asking about what everybody was doing, I'm asking about you. And what you did, step over that pole.
Yeah, I did.
Then you started climbing that light pole, right?
Yeah,
While you're going up there, Sam Farnsworth, he's still back there telling you, no, don't do this.
but he actually climbed into the fence and he started telling me not to.
That's right, he's there saying, hey, get down, this isn't safe.
Right, yeah.
Now, sir, you said something on direct examination. You told us that Sam Farnsworth, you never told him to stand directly underneath you, that's what you said?
I probably didn't tell him to stand directly underneath me, but asked him to stop.
That's right, sir. The word you used was spot, right?
Yeah.
When you spot somebody, that's when you catch them if they mess up or something.
Yeah.
What you wanted Sam to do was catch you if you fell.
Yeah, I asked him to stop me. I didn't think about what would happen to him if I actually did fall on him.
So when your friend was telling you to come down the light pole, you weren't thinking about what would happen to him?
Not if I landed on him, no.
You know he was standing right below you at the light pole.
Yes,
You know he was standing right below you when you reached the top.
yes.
He was standing right below you when you started to slip.
Finish his answer.
I agree.
Go ahead, sir.
No, you're right. He was right below me. That's why I fell on him, because he was right below me.
So that's a yes, sir. He was standing right below you when you started to slip.
Yes, he was.
And when you fell off that light post, Sam Farnsworth was right below you and you landed.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time, sir. No further questions.
Redirect, Ms. Gupta.
I'm done, Your Honor. Is there the excuse?
You may. Ms. Davidson, thank you for your testimony.
Well,
Before resting our case in chief, we'd like to read a portion of Exhibit 45 on the record. It's already been admitted into evidence.
Okay, have you shown that to opposing counsel? Do they know what portion it is?
I can just give the line numbers right now. That's easier, Your Honor.
I think that would be fine.
We'll be reading lines 34 to 36. It's on page 59.
Okay.
If grease had been used to prevent Davidson from reaching the top of the pole, or if he didn't have metal fencing for Farnsworth to strike his head against it, then this accident would not have happened. With that, we do rest our case in chief.
In the interest of fairness and completion under the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, if the defense wished to read in any different, please at 45 at this time.
Yes, Your Honor, we do. Page 58, starting at line 7. I was hired by the plaintiff's attorney in Farnsworth, Philadelphia, to assess the defendant's conduct regarding the incident that killed Mr. Farnsworth. I was paid $1,000 an hour for the 10 hours I spent reviewing the file.
Plaintiff has rested their case in chief. Are there any motions before the court?
No motions from the defense.
None from us either, Your Honor.
Okay, judges, are we okay to keep going? All right, Mr. Adeite, would the defense care to go on the case?
Yes, we would, Your Honor, and the defense calls Walker Edmonds.
Where's your sworn?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Could you introduce yourself, members of the jury?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Walker Edmonds.
What do you do for a living?
I'm the Director of Public Safety right here in Philadelphia.
How'd you get in that line of work?
Well, I've always loved sports games, ever since my granddad took me to my first Red Sox game. Since moving here, I've become a diehard Philadelphia fan, you know, Eagles, 76ers. I still do root for the Red Sox, though, only exception. But I'm in charge of all the public celebrations here now.
You mentioned some public celebrations. What kind are you talking about?
Lots of different things. It's mostly been sports games in the last decade or so. Usually the Eagles, the Phillies are doing pretty good, so baseball, football games, things like that.
What are baseball and football games like?
Oh, I mean, if you're into the sports, I mean, I really don't get good or something, but here in Philadelphia, after the big sports games, especially when we win, it's chaos. I mean, thousands and thousands of fans spilling out on the broad street, lighting things on fire, turning over cars, climbing light poles.
Well, sir, do you know why you're here today?
Yeah. Uh, Earlier this year, right after the Super Bowl, it's around about 100,000. A young kid lost his life. Someone named Lanny Davidson fell on Sam Farnsworth, and Sam passed away.
Sir, you mentioned people climbing on light poles earlier. I want to talk more about that.
Sure.
When was the first time you ever saw a fan climb up a light pole?
First report we got of that was back in 2008. That's when the Phillies won the World Series. After that, it pretty quickly became a tradition. When Philly teams started doing well again, 2015, 2018, we had more reports of that.
Would the team do anything to stop people from climbing up the light pole?
Yeah, in 2018, we actually developed our own technique. I had the idea to put grease on the poles. No one else has done this, to my knowledge. We put the grease on the pole. The idea was that no one would be able to climb because it would be too slippery.
Sir, would putting grease on the light poles stop everybody from climbing up the light poles?
No, it didn't. We still got pretty consistently reports of people still trying to climb up. Pretty consistently, we got 12, 15 reports every time there was a big game.
Did you ever stop putting the grease on the light poles during sports games?
Yeah, we did. Earlier this year, we decided to stop putting the grease. We thought it wasn't cost effective. We thought that because people were still climbing up the poles, the grease just made it more slippery. And therefore, when they were up there, there was a higher chance of them falling down.
I want to be clear. When you took the grease off the poles, did the number of people climbing them increase?
Yes, sir, it did.
But sir, were those people at risk from slipping on the grease?
No, it's not possible. Once we took the grease off, it's not worth slipping from.
So now that we've talked about what you did to the light poles in general, I want to talk about the light pole in this case.
Sure.
Could you turn to Exhibit 6?
Yeah, I'm there.
Have you seen this before?
Yes, sir. This is a police officer's report from Officer Jones. He was the responding officer to the Farnsworth incident.
Did it change or altered since you last saw it?
No, it's all the same.
The defense moves Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Objection.
None, your honor, to public record.
Okay. Without objection, it is admitted.
Sorry, you said this was a document written by a police officer. Does that officer see Lanny Davidson on February 9th?
Yes, sir. Officer Jones reports seeing Lanny Davidson up at the top of an 18-foot pole. And then he reports seeing Farnsworth down at the bottom, inside the metal fencing that we put up.
Does the officer say anything to Lanny Davidson?
Yes, sir. The officer says, I got to the base of the pole and yelled up at Mr. Davidson. This is the police. I'm ordering you down.
When the police Lanny Davidson to come down? Does he listen?
What it says is that the person did begin descending, but then the person had to slip and then fell away on Sam, who was at the base of the pole.
I want to talk about what happened after that. Sure. Could you turn to Exhibit 3?
Yes, sir. I see it.
You recognize exhibit 3?
Yes, sir, this is the autopsy for Mr. Burns.
What did you learn from reading that autopsy?
Says that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head and neck from individual falling on the scene and then impact with the metal fence, which is possible because Mr. Farnsworth was right beneath Mr. Davis.
Sir, do you know why Sam Farnsworth was beneath Laney Davidson?
No, sir, I have no idea. Right before the Super Bowl, we put up these metal fences right around side every single light pole downtown. Mr. Davidson was up at the top, and then Mr. Farnsworth was inside the metal fence at the bottom.
Sir, do you know if Laney Davidson had told Sam Farnsworth to stand at the bottom and catch him if he fell?
No, sir, I really don't know. No one was supposed to go inside the fences. That's why they were there.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Prosecutor.
Yes, Your Honor. May I speak?
You met?
Sir, you said something interesting on direct examination. You said that grease made the poles more slippery, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so your decision was it's better if you don't grease the poles at all. Isn't that true?
That was ultimately the decision this year that we made. Yes.
And your logic there was, well, if we don't grease the poles, less people will slip off them, right?
There were a couple thoughts there. First off, there were a lot of reports about the grease, which we thought might be giving publicity to the climbing of the poles, which we thought was why the number might have been rising. We thought it was safer without the grease, and then we also thought it was cost effective.
Oh, well, sir, I'm not asking you about numbers, whether or not it's cost effective. I'm asking you what you said on direct examination.
Oh,
And on direct examination, you said you thought it was better if you didn't grease the poles, so they wouldn't be slippery, right?
yes, ma'am. That's right.
Well, you mentioned that it might not have been cost effective to grease the poles. Let's see if it was just effective to grease the poles. Now, I'm gonna go through some of the major sporting events in Philadelphia, and Your Honor, is it all right if Mr. Narcipur uses the whiteboard to keep track as we go?
Sure.
Now, in 2018, well, that's when the Eagles, they win the NFCs, right?
At the NFC Championship game?
That's right, they win that, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
Mr. Narcipur, can we get a 2018 NFC up there, please? And in 2018, you do grease the poles, isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am. We greased the poles between 2018 and 2023, and then we stopped this year.
We'll get to the entire range of time, but in 2018, you greased the poles, didn't you?
Yes, that was the first one. That was when I had an idea.
Let's get a G for grease up there. Now, in 2018, you got about 10 reports that people were trying to climb up poles, isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly.
Can you put it next to the G there? 2018, after the Eagles win the NFC, they actually win a Super Bowl too.
Yes, ma'am. That's true. For the Super Bowl, we changed the type of grease that we used. We were using Crisco because it was just an idea that I had. I'm sure it could work. And then we swapped to hydraulic fluid.
Okay, can we get an HG up there for hydraulic grease, Mr. Narcipur, the 2018 Super Bowl? 2018 Super Bowl, Mr. Narcipur. All right, while he's working on that, let's talk about how many accident reports there were in the 2018 Super Bowl. You got about 12 reports that people were climbing up poles, right?
Yes, 12 reports of people climbing up poles, not the same as accidents. We didn't receive any accident reports.
But you did get 12 reports that people were climbing up those poles.
Yes.
Now, in 2022, this time the Phillies, they win the National League, don't they?
Yes, ma'am. They won the National League Championship Series. They made it to the World Series.
Are you caught up with us, Mr. Narcipur? All right, great. This time you also greased the poles, right, in 2022?
Yes, and hydraulic fluid again.
All right, let's
Yeah.
get an HG up there for hydraulic grease.
Yeah, that works.
Now, this time you have 15 reports of people climbing up the poles.
Yes, ma'am. That's fine.
15. 2023. Well, that's when the Eagles, they win the NFC again.
Yes, lost the Super Bowl though.
They win the NFC and you do grease the poles for that celebration.
Yes, both for the NFC Championship and the Super Bowl again. it ended up not being necessary for the second one. Fans didn't party because we lost.
You get 15 reports of people climbing up the poles.
Yes, ma'am, exactly right.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. I'll take it from here. Now, sir, I want to total up the number of reports you get from 2018 to 2023. You have 15 plus 15, 30 plus 10, 40, 42 reports, right? Rather 52 reports, right?
Yes, ma'am, that math sounds right.
All right, let's put a 52 down here. And just to be extra clear, from 2018 to 2020.
Full hydraulic fluid, but yeah, some type of hose, that's right.
So you go from grease to fancier grease, essentially.
Yeah, it's not really fancier, just the biodegradable one doesn't wash off with the rain. We had that problem.
Happens in 2025 and see if you have a different problem that year, because 2025 Eagles win the Super Bowl, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's get an SB here. No grease in 2025.
That's right. There were two major sporting events in this year. There was the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. No grease behind them.
So you mentioned there's an NFC game too. Let's also add that to the list. 2025 NFC. You didn't use grease for that one either, right?
That's
All right, no grease. The 2025 NFC. Do you remember how many reports you get of people climbing up the poles when you didn't put grease on them?
Yes, ma'am. It was 75.
75. Sir, when you didn't grease the poles, you got more reports of people climbing up them than you did in the years 2018 to 2023 combined.
That's right. There were two thoughts on that. The first being that that was actually the largest crowd that we'd seen up until that point. The crowds kept getting larger and larger. And then second, the thought was that people were going to climb no matter what. So if we have 10, 12, 15 people climbing greased poles where they would slip, that could be more dangerous than a couple dozen extra climbing not greased poles.
Sir, you're going to get a chance to explain why you made that decision on reader.
Oh, okay.
For now, I'm just asking you about the numbers, and the numbers tell us that when you didn't grease the poles, you get more reports of people climbing them than all the years past, right?
Yeah, just looking at that figure, that's true. Yeah.
Another thing, from 2018 to 2023, you don't get a single report of a person dying after falling from a pole, do you?
That's right. There's no reports of that I'm aware of. We were pretty worried about it, them being up on slippery poles, but we didn't get any reports.
You're saying no reports that you're aware of. To be clear, you are the director of public safety for the city of Philadelphia, right?
That's right, man.
You didn't get any reports of people dying after falling off a pole.
Yeah, you asked about accidents. I don't know of any minor accidents where no one submitted a police report. Certainly no one died. We would have got a report of that.
Sir, isn't it true that somebody did die at the 2025 NFC celebration when you did not grease the poles?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection, Your Honor, under Rule 404, character evidence. May I be heard?
You meant.
Your Honor, this specific instance, the instance of the city not applying grease and then somebody died, opposing counsel is using this to apply a trait of negligence or carelessness to Mr. Evans. They're using that to show that since they were careless in January 2025, then they must have been careless in February. That violates Rule 404 because it's character evidence.
Yes, Your Honor, this isn't being used to show any negligence. That's for the members of the jury to determine. The only thing we're doing here is evaluating why, rather, the effects of the decision that the witness just testified to not use the grease, and seeing what the effects of that are. It's not character evidence to say, or rather to talk about the consequences of a decision and see how that factors into whether or not he used that same decision on the date. Yes.
May I be heard?
Last word.
Your Honor, just because the jury determines whether or not somebody's negligent, doesn't mean they can't be using this evidence to prove that. What they're doing here is describing a situation, a scenario, where they're saying he was acting careless and it was all his fault. And they're using that to make it more likely that he was careless and it was all his fault in February. They're using the Meyer instance, developing a character, and saying, had that character in today's case.
Response of this, not needed. I understand where counsel for the defense is coming from on this, but I don't feel that the testimony that we've heard is actually getting to a trait for carelessness, which is what the 404 is designed to prevent. So I am going to note but overrule that objection. You can continue.
Yes, Your Honor. So that was yes to my question. When you didn't apply grease at the 2025 NFCs, a person died as a result.
Yes, ma'am. A young man named Nazir Muldrow, he lost his life. It was a crowd of about 80,000.
And still, you chose not to apply grease at the 2025 Super Bowl, didn't you?
That's right. The thought process was that it would be more dangerous if we made the poles more slippery, especially after someone passed away.
Well, you're saying the thought process is it made the polls more dangerous. I want to get one thing clear. Your idea of greasing the polls, it received a lot of media attention, right?
Yes, ma'am. That was one thing we were particularly worried about. The PR, that the phenomenon of climbing the poles was played over and over and over again on the news.
Okay. Thank you. Ms.
Yes,
Cross.
Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Evans, opposing counsel just asked you about all the numbers behind your decision, but I want to talk about the reasons behind your decision.
Sure.
Why did you get rid of Greece for these 2 games?
There were really 3 reasons why. First off, we had a consistent number of reports of people who were still climbing on the light poles, even though the poles were greased. In all 4 of the games where we greased the poles, the number was 10 or above. Second, we thought that with the grease on the poles, they would be more slippery. That was actually the point. And therefore, it could be possible that someone could fall because of the slipperiness of the grease. And then third, we didn't think it was cost effective because it cost around $10,000 to put the grease on. So if it wasn't going to make much of a difference, we decided not to do it.
So, sir, when you decided to take the grease off the light bulbs, was anybody at it from slipping on grease off of the light bulbs?
No, sir. I mean, without the grease, it's not possible to slip on it.
So what did you do instead of this?
What we did for the 2025 Super Bowl after Mrs. lost his life was 2 things. First off, we did a media campaign to tell people don't climb up the poles, it's not safe. And then second, we put up metal fences around the poles to bar them off from the public.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.
Okay,
Can Mr. Edwards step down?
I was just going to ask you that. Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Your Honor.
With that, Your Honor, the defense and the rest of the case in chief, we're ready for closing arguments.
Okay. No questions from the plaintiff, I assume?
None, Your Honor.
Anything we need to take up before closing?
We'd just like to note one last time that Exhibit 35, although it was not used during either of the examinations, it is in evidence right now.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Ms. Gupta, whenever you're ready.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Your Honor. Opposing counsel. Members of the jury. On February 9th, Lynn Davidson climbs a pole, gets to the top, slips, and then he falls on his friend standing below, Sam Farnsworth. So you may be wondering where the city of Philadelphia fits into all this. Because if it's Lynn who's climbing the pole and Sam who's standing underneath, then why are we suing the city for negligence? And the answer really is a little bit bigger than just this. It's about trust. Trust that we put in our city. That if they know something will keep us safe, they will do it. Trust that we can walk on a sidewalk and feel safe. Trust that the decisions about our safety aren't informed by what's cost effective, but by what is effective. The city had a solution. And the fact that they chose not to take that solution results in them taking somebody because they were negligent. In just one moment, you go back to deliberate, you'll be handed a copy of this report. When you flip to the last page of this report, you can review the opinion given by an expert in public safety, where she will tell you if the poles had been greased, that person would not have died. Sam would not have died. And you hear that same thing from Mr. Davidson today when he told you if the poles had been greased, he wouldn't have climbed up them in the first place. You know that if the poles had been greased, the number of deaths would not have been a 1, it would have been a 0. So when the city has a solution as simple as buying a can of grease, and they choose not to take that solution, that makes them negligent. But we couldn't just say the city was negligent, we had to prove that to you. And that's exactly what we did. We showed you that the city failed to take reasonable care. And their failure to do so was a substantial factor in Mr. Farnsworth's death. The way we demonstrated that was by talking to you about the solution the city had, the fact that they chose to ignore that solution, and how Mr. Farnsworth died as a result. So let's talk about the solution, because it's deceptively simple. I mean, when the director of public safety got up here, he said that solution was as simple as buying a can of Crisco vegetable shortening, going to a pole and slathering it on. But even though the solution was simple, you know the solution was effective. Because all the way from 2018 to 2023, there were a total of 52 incidents of people climbing poles. And then when they decide to take that solution away, when they decide they don't want to put that grease on the poles anymore, that number jumps up to 75 in one day. And that's exactly what you heard from the person who climbed the pole himself. Mr. Davidson testified. He told you the very first thing he did was walk up to the pole and do a test. Was there grease? No. That's why he climbed. That's why you see in this report, the fact that the city chose not to put grease on those poles makes them negligent. Because it's not reasonable to have a solution to a known problem. It's not reasonable to have a way to prevent another death and to not take it. I want to talk about the mechanics of the city not taking the solution. Because when the director of public safety was testifying, he told you a lot about how grease made it more slippery. And so that means it was more risky for whoever was climbing the poles. And that it wasn't cost effective. But notice what he said at the very end of his cross-examination. When I asked him, well, let's see why you really didn't put the grease on those poles. Folks, he said one sentence. He said, we were concerned about PR. Does it really make sense that the city would choose not to adopt a solution just because they thought it would make it more risky? I mean, they're trying to tell you that the city was concerned with people slipping from the poles when they got up there. What about stopping people from getting up there in the first place? When you heard from a witness today, that's exactly what that accomplished. And it's not just that they didn't take this solution. It's that somebody dies as a result. You know that Sam Farnsworth, he's standing at the bottom of that pole when Lanny is walking up there. And I expect in a moment, opposing counsel is going to get up here and he's going to say, well, Sam should never have been standing at that exact spot. And that makes the city not negligent because Sam was standing right over here. When if he's over there, he would have been fine. Well, think of how Mr. Davidson was able to get up there in the first place. Folks, if the city had greased the poles that day, Mr. Davidson wouldn't have climbed them. They would never have jumped a fence. Mr. Farnsworth never stood where he did, and he wouldn't have died. If the city had taken the solution they already had, Mr. Farnsworth's death would have been preventable. back of the action that they chose not to take. But we're gonna ask you to find negligence for that choice. Thank you.
Mr. Gupta? Mr. Adeite, closing argument.
Please look. Lanny Davidson did something unpredictable. And that made the accident unpreventable. Members of the jury, Sam Farnsworth is dead. The bottom line is Sam Farnsworth is dead because somebody crushed his head into a metal fence. Plain and simple. What this case comes down to is how that happened. After hearing all of the evidence today, it's clear how it happened. It happened because of Lanny Davidson. How it happened. Because Lanny Davidson wanted to keep it going. When Sam told him don't go up there, ignored him. When the cops told him please come down, ignored him. He saw the fence right in front of him. Ignored him. The reason Sam Farnsworth is dead is because of Lanny Davidson. Even though that's the case, Sam Farnsworth's family still brought this claim of negligence against the city of Philadelphia. This case is simple. It comes down to two issues. You see, when you go back to deliberate, you're going to get to look at this verdict form. This verdict form, it asks you two questions. Did the city of Philadelphia's negligence cause Sam Farnsworth's death? And if they did, how much of it was their fault? We've shown you today, members of the jury, is that no, they didn't cause his death. None of it was their fault. So what I want to do now is walk through how we showed you that by talking about three simple facts. First, the city was safe. Second, Sam Davidson did something unpredictable. And that made Sam Farnsworth's death unpreventable. So let's start with that first. The city was safe. Because despite what it wants you to believe, there is more than one way to take care of the city. There is more than one way to keep the residents safe. I mean, you heard today about all the things that Mr. Edwards did. You heard he barricaded parts of the city. He made public transportation free. Tried to get people sent back home. He put fences around the light poles. He told everybody do not do this. He made public releases on social media. They did it all. They knew that if they took away the grease on the light poles, they had to do something, so they did something. Plain and simple, they stepped up. They did their job. But then the plaintiff, they want to make it sound like the grease is the end-all, be-all. They want to make it sound like if the grease was on that light pole, it would be A-OK. But what is really support? All we have is Lanny Davidson's work. All we have is Lanny Davidson telling us, hey, if the grease was here, I wouldn't do that. But folks, the truth is the actions just don't support it. You haven't gotten to see this yet, so I want to show you this. This is what Lanny Davidson got to look at when he stepped outside. This is not so. This is not implying anything. It is clear and obvious. A fence around the light post. When Lanny Davidson sees this, he doesn't say, okay, time to go back. He doesn't say, all right, I had too much fun today. What he does is step over that fence and touch the light. So members of the jury, think about that for a second. If Lanny Davidson is daring, brave enough to step over a clear and obvious sign, what makes you think that some grease on a light pole is actually going to stop him? Once again, all we have is the man's word. And we know how much his word is worth, members of the jury, because when he took the stand today, he told you that the only reason he's testifying is to clear himself. You find out that he was a defendant in this case at first. People knew he did something wrong. They left him silent. They had bigger fish to catch. That's all it was. You want to know how much Lanny Davidson's word is worth? It's worth as much as the dollar he gave the Farnsworth family. Not much. So members of the jury, that leads us to that second fact we proved today. Lady Davidson did something unpredictable. The thing about this case is everybody in this room right now, they agree that climbing up that light pole is wrong. They agree that it's unsafe, it's reckless. In case it doesn't just stop there. What Lady Davidson does when he goes up there is that he brings someone else into harm's way. He goes up there 18 feet in the sky and he tells his best friend in the world, hey, please come stand underneath. Members of the jury, what this case is about is reasonable care, ordinary care. Think about what being careful would look like. Being careful is telling Sam Farnsworth, go stand 10 feet away. Being careful is telling Sam Farnsworth, get back. Being careful is not even climbing that light post in the first place. But that's what Lady Davidson did. Think about this situation. We have an adult man who was making conscious decisions. Someone who knew that what he was doing was crazy, reckless, unsafe, his words. He does it anyway. Who else's fault could it have been? He made the situation get reckless. He invited Farnsworth into that danger. So members of the jury, that leads us to that third fact we proved today. And that's that his unpredictable actions, that's not profound. And members of the jury, that's clear and easy to see because you have that autopsy report in front of you. Sam Farnsworth died because his head crashed into a pole. He only crashed into that metal pole because Lady Davidson was up top. That is the last thing that happened before he died. Right before Sam Farnsworth died, what he sees when he's begging, no, please don't do this, what he looks up and sees is his best friend in the world saying, come here. Of course, it's his fault. When you go back to deliberate, members of the jury, something you're going to have to consider is what was a substantial factor in his death. And members of the jury, all the other solutions or explanations the plaintiff wants to talk about, it's not big enough. If they add grease to those poles, maybe Lady Davidson doesn't climb it, maybe he goes home, maybe he finds a different pole, maybe he wipes the grease off. We can't be sure. But if Lady Davidson tells Sam Farnsworth move, if Sam Farnsworth isn't standing there, plain and simple, he doesn't. Sam Farnsworth is dead because of the actions of Lady Davidson. As much as we talk about Lady Davidson, his actions, city's actions, anything, what this case comes down to is Sam Farnsworth. What this case is about is Sam Farnsworth. You see, Sam, he used to be a student. He used to be a friend. He used to get to travel the world. But now, he's just exhibit one. Oh no. This is what's left. The reason he's just a photo is because of the actions of one person and one person alone. Lady Davidson. That's why I asked her to find the city of Philadelphia, not lie about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Adeite. Ms. Gupta, rebuttal.
Yes, Your Honor.
And see, men.
Folks, you heard moments ago that the city was safe. And something unpredictable happens. So, Mr. Farnsworth's death isn't preventable? Well, let's be clear, the city was safe. The city's safe in 2018, the city's safe in 2022, the city's safe in 2023. And then something unpredictable does happen because the thing that's keeping the city safe is taken away. The numbers jump from 52 to 75, that's certainly unpredictable. But to say Mr. Farnsworth's death was not preventable, when all it took was a can of grease, that's to look a solution dead in the eye and then choose to walk away. Don't let the city walk away from that choice. We ask you to find the negligent for that choice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. We are going to ask the advocates and the witnesses to step out so that we can balance, and then we'll call you back in and do a little bit of feedback, and then hopefully release you. To the